Welcome to the Pestle, reviewing and breaking down movies to look for insights into the movie-making process. Hosted by Steve Jobs, but made in China. Now, let's dim the lights and start the show.
Welcome everyone to the Pestle. Today's show is brought to you by Gazorpazorpfilled, your favorite cat that hates Gernflurps. Catch it on Dimension 55. Welcome everyone to the Pestle. I am Wes.
And I'm Todd.
And we're filmmakers. We write, direct, produce, score, make music, make memories. And then we like to, watch films, tear them apart or build them up and, I don't know, see what they're made of. We're a pestle, like a mortar and pestle. That's what that's a reference to if you haven't picked up on that. And what happens in a mortar and pestle is you put in, corn, or whatever, wheat, and you grind it up and you make flour. So we're grinding up movies and we're turning it in, we're putting it in the oven, we're making it into whatever, potato chips or something, whatever you make flour with. I don't know. I'm not really a cook, Todd. I just play one on TV. You make pancakes. That was the first thing I asked for when I came out of my coma, little Billy. And so, yeah, dude, I'm excited. We have a request that came in off of the YouTubes from Belated Reflections. So shout out and thanks for the request. And what did they ask us to cover, man?
Yeah, they asked us to cover Hero from 1992 with Dustin Hoffman and Geena Davis. So if you haven't seen this film, pause the episode, go watch it because we're going to spoil all the things.
Yep, we're going to dive deep into right off the ledge. We're going straight into the sidewalk of this movie to discuss some of the cinematography, talk about revelation shots. That was a pretty morbid picture of diving into a sidewalk. And we'll cover some of the story and writing, talk about, I don't know, news reporting, human nature, and other such stuff and things and stuff.
And a quick synopsis of the film. A small-time criminal rescues passengers from a crashed airliner, only to see another man take credit. It's directed by Stephen Frears. Screenplay by David Webb Peoples. Cinematography by Oliver Stapleton. It's featuring Dustin Hoffman as Bernie LaPlante, Geena Davis as Gale Gayley, Andy Garcia as John Bubber, James Madio as Joey, and Chevy Chase as Deke, the Channel 4 news director.
Nice. And what's kind of interesting is Chevy Chase is uncredited in the movie because apparently he was under contract with a different studio. And the only way they could get him in here is if they didn't actually give him a credit, which is
cool.
Pretty random. Like contracts are weird, I guess. I wonder if that still happens. I have no idea. But yeah.
I mean, what is Chevy Chase doesn't need credits.
Yeah, we know who you are.
Yeah.
Do you know who I am?
Cares?
He's that guy that you're like, you know what? Yeah, I do know who you are. Because normally if you have to ask, the answer is no.
Yeah.
So,
and this was before like National Lampoons and stuff like that, right?
No, way after. Yeah, National Lampoons
was way after?
like in the 80s.
When was National Lampoons?
Yeah, it was in the 80s.
Even the Christmas Vacation?
I mean, especially Christmas Vacation. Let's see.
Really?
I'm pulling it up though. 89. Christmas Vacation.
You're
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
He just looks younger.
Yeah.
I don't know. He looks way younger in this movie. I don't know. Anyway,
dude,
maybe it's just that he lost weight. It looks like he's skinny
yeah.
in this film.
Maybe that. Yeah.
Oh.
I don't know, dude. 30 some odd years ago, this is a deep cut. Like we've covered some throwbacks, and most of them aren't deep cuts. They're like films that are still somewhere in the zeitgeist, like Speed. We covered, but that was a huge pop culture, phenomenon, and was referenced everywhere, and people still reference it. And it's still, if you're doing a hypercut of movies, there's a good chance you're going to see that bus flying through the air. Hero does not make the hypercut, supercut of anything. This is a pretty deep cut that was kind of under the radar even in the 90s. Like it had a moment. I saw this a handful of times, but I have no idea if you had ever heard of this movie, let alone saw it when it came out. No. So what was it like catching this relic from the early 90s?
Yeah, it was, I didn't know what to expect, when you're talking about early 90s movies, I just kind of, and I was debating on whether or not to talk about this, but whatever. I'm just gonna
Here
be
we
real.
are. Yeah.
Like I just don't like most of them, and it's mostly, well, a lot of it is that I just don't like a lot of the cinematography. I think that the acting is usually like kind of half-assed, or it's just old. It's like there was acting used to be like really, really good, like back in like the 60s, 70s. Like it was like when it was, or even earlier, like Who's Coming to Dinner, right? And we see like there were these heydays of really good acting, and then I feel like there was like this 20 years or 15 years of just like dog shit, where they just,
It's corny.
I don't know.
It's on
Maybe
the
they
nose.
didn't have
Yeah.
they didn't have the technology to be as good as they wanted to be. Maybe, I don't know. But whatever. And in the early 90s, that was like it.
I
like,
blame
for me.
I blame a combination of like directing along with the explosion of home media, right? In the 80s,
Yes.
you really had an explosion of home media, which meant a lot more people were making things, and they also didn't have the chops for it. Like, you want to make a movie, and now you can. Like, if you look at, in the 2010s, during a new explosion, you had a lot of people taking their DSLRs and making movies. Like, suddenly, you and I could have made a movie, 15 years ago, and it would have been hot trash because, we're still figuring stuff out. And the last thing you want to do is hone a script, hone a performance. And so you just kind of rush things. You're like, oh yeah, great job. And the taste isn't there to meet, the execution isn't there to meet your taste. Maybe even your taste isn't as developed. I don't know. That's my knee-jerk reaction.
No, dude, I think you're totally right. And we're going through, we've been going through one. We went through one in the 2010s. We're going through one now, with just streaming. And so, it's just a different version of the same thing. Anyway, this era is just not my favorite. But that said, I really enjoyed this film, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think that Dustin Hoffman is freaking-tastic. I mean... man, he's so good. And it's really easy to forget him. He hasn't done much lately, right?
Yeah.
So it's really easy to forget how freaking iconic he is, how so good he is. It is a little bit jarring at times, the cinematography. Like I got taken out of it when he's on the phone with his wife when he's about to go to jail, and he is delivering a master class in nostalgia and wishing that he was different and apologizing to her. And it just kept zooming in to him. I'm just like, okay, stop zooming in. It was just too close. I was like, I can only see like one part of him. I can't see the entire screen of his face. Like, stop zooming in. That really bothered me because I wanted to be able to see his whole face, and because what he was doing was so amazing. Yeah. And but other than that, I thought that the cinematography was really amazing in this film. It was like so good. Yeah. So that moment, which I think is one of the most pivotal moments in the whole movie, like was like really frustrating that I watched it multiple times. Like that scene I thought was so good that I went back and watched it again. Wow. And I still had the same reaction. Just like, stop zooming in. Just stay still. You don't need a dramatic zoom in for this. He's doing all the work for you. But other than that, I thought the cinematography was fantastic. The setups were great. I thought the lighting was great. In 1992, lighting really sucked. It was like on or off, and this is definitely on. Yeah. Andy Garcia is so great in this. Like, I love him. I believe it. And I thought that the story was interesting because normally, I would expect a story like this for John Bubber to be to want all the admiration and like want the accolades and all that stuff, like, I'm coming in and taking your glory, but he didn't. He just was a good guy. And that was I was watching it thinking, what is going to happen? Because normally it's, okay, the guy who did it, maybe he goes to jail or he can't do anything about it. And this guy's taking all this credit. And then he comes up and he's like, no, it was me. I want all the credit. But Bernie didn't want the credit. Neither did John. He didn't want he wanted the platform to do good. Right. And so it was just like such an interesting dynamic, right? And then at the end, and I'm going through this fast, but at the end, when Gale is talking to Bernie in the room, and she says thank you, and he says you're welcome. It was like, I don't know, I got emotional. At it, and I totally did not expect to. I thought, I don't know. I think maybe because I really identify with the idea that sometimes we're heroes and sometimes we're not, because we're human. And sometimes we, like the mood strikes you, you're going to do something, that you might not have, or you're not going to do something that you maybe would have. It's just a really true message, an honest message. And so we see that with Bernie. Like he's kind of an idiot, or not an idiot, but he's like, he's a criminal, and he's not the best father, and he was a terrible husband, and like
he's not even sure how old his kid is. 9-10 years old.
9 or 10. Yeah. But in that moment, he told that kid he was going to do something, and God damn it, he was going to do it. Mm-hmm. And that meant he saved drugged 4 people out of the plane, but he kept going back, and he felt bad about not being able to find that kid's dad afterwards. So not only did he like go in and back in, but he was sad that he failed, or he thought he failed. And it was really good at showing the dichotomy of humanity, of human nature, of sometimes we'll run into a burning building and sometimes we won't. And it just depends. And so at the end there, you care about him so much throughout. Like at the beginning, you're just like, oh, okay, he's just like a jerk, and he's like stealing from it's such a great opening. He's stealing from his attorney, and she's so sweet. And then at the end, you love him because you see that, like, man, he's just struggling like all of us, and all he wants is money. He wants a little bit of breathing room, And what does he ask for from John? He asks for his money for his kid to go to college and graduate school, like wherever, like, and yes, he gets a monthly stipend, I think he says, or whatever. But other than that, like it's mostly to take care of his kids and his kid and his family. And I just like fell in love with him by the end of the movie. And so I wanted him to say, this is me. I did it. And he just won't do it to Gale at first. And until he knows that she knows. And when she says, it basically says like, she says, thank you, which proves that she knows no matter what he says, because he already said no. Because he promised John that he was going to, like, this is what we're going to do. Here's the plan. And so of course he's not going to tell Gale, because I made the plan with John, and I don't want to ruin it because I want my kid to get his money. But then when Gale said thank you, and he knew that she knew, and he knew what off the record meant, which was a funny exchange there. Shows you the level of his knowledge. He then owned up to it, and he's saying you're welcome. Just like, I don't know, it just hit me, man. It was so good. And then to continue the story, like you could have ended the story there. Mm-hmm. They could have like cut to black or something like that. I don't know, but no, they take it 2 steps further. Gale goes out and asks a question to John, and John has just the freaking perfect answer. He just he's very John. He's just like so kind and other person oriented. It's like, this is the guy you want to be the hero, that you expect to be the hero is this guy. Right. And it's just the hero everybody needed and wanted. But then to take it another step further and have Bernie be in the zoo with his son and be able to tell his son the truth. And then in one more step further where the kid falls into the lion's den and he's like, hold my shoes. And he's reluctantly going to save this kid's life. It's so wonderful, the whole time. And I thought, holy crap, Geena Davis too. Like, in that scene where he's about to jump, her crying and getting upset and emotional. I totally believed that. I thought she was fantastic. And what really got me, last thing I'll say, what really got me not emotional, but just like I have a fear of like jumping and heights and stuff. And so when there's a scene on a ledge, I start to get tense, like really tense. I don't always stay that way because I feel like movies take care of you in a lot of ways. When that's kind of happening, like the guy who jumps in the beginning of the movie with Gale standing right there and he jumps. I didn't feel like, nervous, even though the camera was hanging off the edge. The camera was over the edge and he's like, it's facing him and I didn't feel anything. That scene where they're sitting on the ledge, the entire time I was so tense. I was so nervous. My butt was clenched. I was like holding my breath. And then when they stand up to like leave and he starts tripping or like falling, I don't know if it was the editing, if it was the sound design and music, or just the camera placement, or maybe all of it. But like I was scared. I don't know how to explain it. I was scared, and it's a movie, and it's a movie it's like a comedic drama, comedy.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is.
I would call it a comedy. Yeah,
comedy. It's a comedy. I know they're not going to die. I know it. I absolutely know it, and yet I was still like holding my breath when the camera would kind of like be off kilter, or like be, looking up at them from the ledge, the corner of the ledge or something while they're talking and reaching for the coffee. I was like super tense. I don't know how they did that. Maybe you can shine some light on that. Cause for me, I don't have that feeling in movies very often. And for a 1992 movie to make me feel all of those feelings throughout, man, total win. This is an awesome film,
dude. Right? It's so surprising because I hadn't seen this since I was like 11 or 12, and I watched it a few times, but it's been so long and it didn't leave that big of a mark on me that like I remembered everything. In fact, I couldn't remember who. I knew there was, Andy Garcia and Dustin Hoffman, but I couldn't remember who was the hero and who was the fake. I couldn't remember any of those beats. And so watching this was like, I don't know, watching it for the first time almost, or at least being reminded of something that you hadn't, heard in so long. And so it was a really fascinating experience just to revisit this after so long. And all those emotions, man, I felt. And I wasn't sure, as we've been going and revisiting some of these older films, it's 50-50 on if they hold up or not. And the ones that I think hold up don't. And the ones that I'm worried about are doing surprisingly well. Like, this is such a great movie. And it really, I mean, all your three main actors are just crushing it. But they're all standing, on Dustin Hoffman's back, because if he doesn't walk in, that's such a weird character. This, dude who's a jerk. You need to buy in completely that he's a little indifferent to humanity. And so the writing is, sharp as a tack, for sure. And the directing is, Frears is, I think we would recognize him mostly from like High Fidelity, is one of his bigger hits, or at least more well known in pop culture. But he's got a track record, a mile long. And so he's an old pro, but it's sharp. But it all comes down to Dustin Hoffman executing. Like whenever the plane crashes and he's annoyed, he's annoyed with people screaming for help. He's like, hold on. What do you think I'm doing over here, you asshole? Like, he's just like, he's so annoyed with having to save people. And it's just so perfect, because you really need to sell that person in order to also sell the fact that no one's given him the time of day to explain himself. Because a lot of movies fall apart at that point where you're just like, why won't they explain themselves? Why won't you just say the thing? Because they've really well established how big of a jerk he is. I mean, like you said, stealing from your public defender.
Yeah. It's perfect.
And then paying her back with her money and then taking her money back as if like, oh, okay. Like it's such a well executed scene on all fronts, that's writing, directing, and absolutely performance. And it's just so beautiful because if you don't believe that that's that guy, then whenever it comes time for him to tell his, attorney, like, yeah, that was me on the plane. She's like, oh, okay. Like, we already know how she sees him because that's not that guy. We already know his wife. If she's had a kid with him, then we definitely know she's done with his bullshit. Like, he's built this reputation and he has to have earned it before you get to those moments, because you can't earn it after those moments, or else you've already lost your audience. And so the structure of this movie needs to take its time a little bit on the front end. And that's where I think, another worse version of this would have trimmed out 20, 30 minutes. Because part of me was like, I would like this movie to be 90 minutes. It would be a way worse movie for it. Because you would.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because normally cutting more time out would make it better. But you're right. I feel like I want this runtime. It's almost 2 hours.
Yeah, it's right there. And if you don't have it, you lose the audience early on, because if you start with the plane crash, that's a lot of work, man. That's a lot of buy-in that you have to get your audience to do right off the bat. Because that's a logical point. Like, start with the big bang, and then we're already in it. But you really need to establish Bernie's character. You need to see him using his kid to get him out of jail. That's the only reason he takes his kid to the zoo. It's a get out of jail free card. And
yeah, of course. And I just want to point out really quickly, you're talking about the plane crash, and that reminded me that probably, like, I don't know if it's the second best shot in the film, because I already said the best shot. Well, no. Okay, hold on.
You didn't like the shot, you liked the performance.
Not the best performance.
Yeah.
The best performance is later. The best shot in the film is through the windshield when he sees the plane crash.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, because he knows he's got to help. He's like so frustrated. But we just stay on him for like almost a full minute. I don't know, 45 seconds while he's watching this happen. Does so many things. One, we get to just stay with Dustin Hoffman for a straight minute. Lovely. Amazing. Two, it's an interesting angle through the windshield. Three, we cut so much budget by not showing the plane crash. Like, it is so much cheaper to just show, like, it's so much easier, right? And then also we don't need to do a bunch of CGI that looks like trash from 1992 of a plane crashing because it's total garbage. No. We just cut that out. Like, it's actually really great directing and a really great choice of angle and shot from the cinematographer. Anyway,
absolutely. In addition to all of that, it's also a character moment, because as we're watching him, we're watching how he's reacting to a crazy emergency. Like, this is great nuts. Point. And he couldn't be less concerned. In fact, his only concern is it's making him late. It's in his way. That's his really big issue. As he gets out of his car and he's like, oh, what now? Like, what is this? God.
And he just saunters over to the edge. He's like, oh, God.
That's a great character moment.
Take off my $100 shoes.
But it's a great character moment to watch him reacting to a plane wreck. Like, now we get to see his indifference and see how he's not this rush into action hero. And so there's a lot of reasons to stay there on that instead of watching the actual crash. The budget and it's a character building moment are two amazing reasons to stay right there. Yeah, good call out, man. And I also love that whole sequence. I mean, that's a great set piece. Like, holy crap. I mean,
yes,
that's an amazing set piece. And I also love, like, from our point of view, watching this, it's a very dark scene. It's hard to make out. I mean, it feels like it's hard to make. You can see everything, but it feels like it's hard to make out because of how everything is perfectly balanced. And one of those reasons is the exposure is set to expose for the fire. Like, the fire is more in the middle gray area. Therefore, everything else is pulled down into, like, if you're thinking about your exposure in 10 stops in like the zone system, Ansel Adams style, then everything else is kind of sitting in that, 8 zone, 7-8 zone. And so it feels really dark. But on the day when you're shooting that, everything's bright as hell. Like, it couldn't be more lit. But because of how, hot fire is, and I mean that in the, obviously in the literal sense, but the heat is in the Kelvin index, it's way up there. And if you want those highlights to not get overexposed, you got to pull all that down. So it's warm, in the Kelvin scale, like it's putting everything on a warmer, front makes it, I don't know, more dangerous, I think. That color temperature tends to sell a little bit more of the danger, but also just the exposure side. Also, you have to pull way down, and now you get those nice, beautiful textures, and also kind of gives you more of the danger element as well. And so I think those two things are going hand in hand, and it also just makes it, darker, and it looks and feels more dangerous, and it also conceals his identity. So it's playing in all these story elements of the danger element, and also the fact that they don't know who he is. Who's this mystery angel? Well, they couldn't see him, and neither could we. We now understand their point of view. How could you not see this guy? And if you overlight everything, and then suddenly it really doesn't make sense. And so, yeah, very cool stuff. Talking about like camera work. I love the camera guy. Like, that guy is hilarious. Because he's so involved. What does he say? Dang it, I don't think I wrote anything down, but he's constantly, glazing himself, like the cameraman indifferent to his own safety, thinking about nothing but f-stops, focus. It's just,
Yes, it's so great.
It's so good. And I love that it's him in love with his own skill and completely indifferent to the people he's filming. And I think that's getting to the heart of the movie, right? Is a whole commentary about humanity. And what you were talking about earlier, about Bubber having a moment of weakness and getting into the spotlight to do good, it's so good. This whole conversation around the dichotomy of mankind. And I think this is one of the more honest films we've seen when it's talking about heroes, because it's being very pointed about how cynical the news is, right? Like, and they even compare the cynicism of the news, the landlord, whenever he's letting them in, Gale and her cameraman, like, he's letting them into his apartment. He's like, oh, this guy, who cares? He's got more lies than a newspaper. Like, he's got more stories than a newspaper. Like, there's this comparison to how corrupt Bernie is in comparison to the news. Like, there's all these analysis happening about truth and news, and Bernie himself is at the end, right? He's watching his own story being reported on the news, and he's like, man, you can't believe one word you hear on TV. It's all bullshit. I swear to God. Even as he's talking to a news reporter who just quit her job. And so this movie is really doing a really fascinating job of putting humanity under the spotlight alongside of the people who are reporting and are supposed to be bringing the truth about humanity. Like, that's supposedly, And so, however cynical you are in today, right? This isn't a new thing. I think that's kind of the important thing that I'm looking at, because we might think, what we're seeing on the news is frustrating, but maybe it's not as new and fresh as you think it is. That feeling has been around for a while. Like, you can't believe what you see on TV. And in fact, if you go back to Network, right? I mean, that's a movie. Is it the 80s, the 70s? I mean, Network was that. The whole point of that was the news is a lie. And so whatever you're feeling now watching today's news is not a new feeling. And maybe there's some frustration, but also comfort in knowing that, and that this isn't a new problem. It's maybe getting worse in a lot of ways, but it's certainly not a new thing. And watching how it's interpreted, I think, these two characters, Bubber, who had a moment of weakness, but is trying to do something good, that otherwise he really is a really good person. I mean, they pull up that story from Vietnam, right? And he did the same thing that Bernie did. He didn't get credit because no one was there to witness it. And so it's like a delayed reaction, that he's getting the credit that was due him in a war that was ill-reported. Great. And then you have Bernie, who did the good thing, but is also just who is really not that guy. And every other aspect of his life, he's not that guy. but yet he's still capable of it. He did do that thing. So he is that guy, but the point being, humanity isn't one or the other. Humanity is always both. Whatever you're thinking about one person, there's good and bad within them. And it's so much easier. And this is what we do as a society, is to paint with a broad brush. This person is evil and therefore everything they've ever done. Like Hitler loved his mom, but people don't want to hear about the very picture of evil, having some capability of love in his heart. Just like we don't want to think about whatever Mother Teresa or Gandhi doing ill things in their life. Mother Teresa was responsible for some pretty foul shit, but we don't really like to think of and ruminate on that in society. I mean, for decades and decades, that was the ultimate comparison: was, are you Mother Teresa or are you Hitler? And it's like, man, I don't know if we all have Hitler in us. Hopefully not. But, that isn't to say that he also didn't have something in him that was still human, and it's so much easier to just blanket everything. And this movie is really calling that into question and asking us, to see humanity for more than its absolutism, and instead to like peel the onion and acknowledge it. And that's that whole analogy, that metaphor, that she wins her award and she pulls up this onion, and being a cynic who's trying to remove her cynicism, she pulls out this onion and she's like, this is a metaphor for a story. And really the story is a person, right? And she says, oh, I got this guy who, took his own life, but he had everything going for him. He was happily married. He had $40 million in the bank, blah, blah, blah. But I can't stop there, can I? I can't just let a tragic story be tragic. I have to find out what was wrong with him. Oh, he had an affair. Maybe he was accused of hurting kids. Maybe the affair was, being blackmailed against him. And before you're done, there's nothing left to like about this person. And that's kind of everyone. Like, if you peel enough layers back on a person, you will find reasons to hate them. And it's asking you to find reasons to like people, which I think is really fascinating, because Bernie is such a cool character because of how much we hate him in the front end. But by the end, you also have to recognize Bernie saves everybody. He rescued everyone on the plane, and then a guy takes the credit, and what does he do? He saves him too. Literally by going out on the balcony and saving his life, but he also saves his character. He's like, you did this thing, you took credit that wasn't yours, but I'm going to restore that. I'm not going to let that be who you are in everyone else's eyes, because everyone has a restored faith in humanity through you. I'm going to keep that intact. And in that way, he saves everyone. Everyone's faith in humanity remains intact by the end of the film. And I think that's really cool,
that's
too.
The heroic part.
That's the heroic part.
Amazing. So, this is the power of movies, man. You can invent a scenario that maybe has happened, but it doesn't matter if it has or not. You can invent a scenario to convey a perspective, and shed light on a reality, a perspective of what a hero actually is, right? Like, it's not just somebody who like a fireman who always runs into the burning building, but I love that there's one scene with that guy.
Yeah.
And in that scene, you freaking hate him.
Right.
He's the hero. He's the hero who runs into burning buildings and saves people. But even then, he's like, we don't just run in. There's protocols and stuff. Da, 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 da. Like,
yep.
I know firemen, and that's not firemen, but the point of this film is to communicate that the hero is not always the hero, right? The known hero is not always the hero. And what does it mean to be a hero? And it doesn't mean that you're not, like you just said, that you're not of fault. It's perfect to have Bernie be a thief, and to have, he says it so many times, God, what does he say? Like I've got some legal issues. I think he says that like 17 times in the movie. I've got some legal issues. Of course. And yet you're right. He saves everyone, including John, and who he stands for, and us, right? Us as like the society who sees John as the hero, and we get to keep him as a hero because of Bernie. So like, yeah, wow.
But it goes back.
Like, that's crazy, dude.
It's nuts. It's because I don't feel like we get stories this sharp that often, and that a group of people sat down and cooked this up, and then got it made. It's really cool and really speaks to the freedom that was happening in the before times. I don't know what else to call it anymore. But the what makes this work so well is what you were talking about earlier, that contrast of they could have made Bubber into a jerk who just goes around taking things, and they could have piled on the cynicism, and instead they gave you a really beautiful contrast of character, two people who are like perfectly divisible, like perfectly symmetrical in how reversed they are from each other. One guy who's otherwise just sparkling, like failure of society, right? Like Bubber is a war veteran who did a good thing and yet ended up homeless, sleeping in the woods. He's recycling, right? That's how he pays for his gas, is he recycles. He picks up
That's a great way to be introduced to him, by the way.
Yeah. And he picked a stranger up on the side of the road. Mm-hmm. In the rain.
And it's just great that he's recycles and they call it out. Like Bernie says, "Oh, you're a drinker?" He's like, I recycle. Not only does he recycle and help the earth, but that's how he makes his money. It's like, and he's picking up hitchhiker. You're right. It's so good.
It's perfect. And of course, everything we know about Bernie is the mirror reflection of that, of the inverse. And it's a great starting point to say, let's not give people an easy out. Let's complicate things. You're not going to be able to hate anyone in this movie for long. Like, we start with a bitterness towards Bernie, but also he makes us laugh, and so we like him. And it's Dustin Hoffman, and he's just so locked in. And you just can't stay mad at Bernie for long because you're amused. And that's the beauty of the humor. Like, they lay up so much humor that by the time you get to the end of the film, you're ready for some serious beats. And whenever you have the danger, you gasp a little like, wait, I felt safe this whole time, but we also watched a guy go over the ledge without a second to think about it. Like, and
you're right.
We don't know, but that's also the beauty of what I like to call the rule of repeats. We're not going to see the same thing happen twice. That first guy we got to see go over the ledge so that the next guy who went over the ledge didn't fall. He got caught. And it was the restoration. Gale was over there trying to say, grab him, because that's the thing she didn't do. She needs this guy to be the thing, just be the thing that I'm not. Please. Mm-hmm. Restores everything. God, it's such a good, like, symmetry in this movie. I think I'm sure if we were to start, diagramming this whole thing, we would find a lot of mirror reflections about some of the timing and the structure of when things happen, because that moment happens at the very end, just like the first jump happens at the very beginning. And some people aren't changed and are not moved, and they are the storytellers themselves, right? The cameraman is the same guy at the end. Deke, the news director, same guy. Even the Stephen Tobolowsky's character, whenever it's such a good laugh moment, and also kind of alleviates a little bit whenever Bernie goes over the edge and he's thinking about grabbing him. Bubber's thinking about grabbing him. We cut to Tobolowsky and he's like, "Never reach for the guy."
Yeah.
And it's so good. And I love just how much is built into the sequencing, the setting up of some of these dramatic beats, and the anticipation is there, but there's also a sense of safety because of how much laughter there's been throughout the film. Even when that guy fell over, we didn't watch him. We heard it. We heard him hit the ground, but we didn't watch him. And so they've built a little bit of a safety net for us, the audience, to buy in, and also to I don't know, not get too worked up over how this is going to go. So you get some of that tension without ever really feeling like it's going to go the other way.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't gonna, but like, dude, I was still, I felt like I was on the ledge with them. Maybe that was the camera work. It's probably the camera work, but like, my God, I was just so stressed out the whole time because like, yeah, I knew it wasn't going to go over, but I don't know.
Yeah.
This shit could get real dark real quick, you know, like maybe Bernie falls, you know. Of course, when his wife and son got there, I was probably like, okay, it's probably not going to happen in front of his son. That's real dark. But still, I just felt like really stressed out on the edge of something. So
it really helps that you do see that first guy go over the edge. And now you're like,
it does.
You know, it's possible in this world for someone to jump and not get caught. So
yeah,
it's possible.
And to your point about the dichotomy there, you know, we see in the first guy jump, and the cameraman and Gale are both like, okay, well, how should we report this? Okay, I'll go over there and I'll shoot you from here, whatever. They're like, don't care at all about it. And then at the end, or, you know, when we see this scene on the ledge at the end, Gale is sobbing. I mean, she is like upset. Of course, she knows these people, you know, maybe that's part of it too. It's like, you know, the whole interstellar thing where you're just like, it's hard to see past our immediate, you know, center of influence of people, right? Anybody outside of that, they could die and it doesn't affect us, you know, kind of thing. Maybe that's it. And she knew, you know, Bubber. So anyway, and then I think that she understood at that point, right? Correct my memory. She understood. She had this sense that it was Bernie. Yeah, she like knew it was Bernie.
There's this beautiful. This is the reaction shot I wanted to touch on because I'm always interested in how you visualize a nonverbal thing, and that's film is a visual medium, and the more you can do without saying, right? Show me, don't tell me. Often the better off you are. To put a thought into the audience's mind can be more powerful than saying it out loud. And so one of the ways they do that is revealing that Gale knows. She now understands, and they do it without saying anything. And it happens after he's up there on the ledge. He's, I love that shot of him like wiping his face, and suddenly he's mucked up. And I'm like, I believe that. I believe that ledge is filthy. No question.
100%. It's great.
And so he's covered his face, and she looks at the TV, and she sees him on TV covered in dirt. And you see that look on her face a little bit. And so she goes to the window and looks at him, and he's now backlit, and he turns and looks at her. And then she turns and looks back at the TV, and now there's a dramatic push in. And we cue music, and we know that she knows. And it's so perfect because the movie says, let's take a time out here and let's recreate what she was experiencing during the crash through the lighting, through the look. And now we can, as an audience, start to feel her remembering. And it's just through like basically 3 shots. Is her seeing him in the same way, and then push in. A dramatic push in can do so much work. And I think it's so perfect that you pointed out they went too far on the push. And the
do you agree?
I agree. I don't know that it occurred to me when I was watching it, but I think you're right. Like his performance was doing more than enough. And I think it's one of those moments where less might have been more, where he could have. Now, being in 1992, Frears probably said, the audience needs a little help. And so I'm going to give it to them. So we're just going to push and push and push, and they're going to feel the drama. Great. But otherwise, I mean, I think this is a pretty sparkling movie. That's shot when Gale gets into the Drake, and we just dolly over. We do that side tracking shot where we're just tracking her, and the camera keeps going until it's outside the window and we see Bubber. Like, that's a beautiful shot.
Oh, yeah.
It's just revealing the geography of the scene and how much hubbub there is around Bubber, and then how alone he is on that ledge. Like you see all these people crammed in, and it's bright and it's well lit on the inside, and everything's dark and isolated outside. And that's this emotional state. And you see that visualized perfectly in the camera work.
I think you just freaking nailed it. That is why I felt so stressed out on the ledge, because I felt alone, like because of the lighting. You just nailed it, because like inside the Drake, like in the hotel, it's like really bright and lit, and I feel grounded. Obviously there's a ground, so I feel grounded, but I feel like safe. But then out on the ledge, just the lighting is like, it's dark, but it's also like hard. There's like hard lit. It's hard lit, and the placement of the camera with the lighting just like makes me feel alone on a ledge, even though you're surrounded by hundreds of people. It's amazing what lighting can do.
Yeah, and to tie both of those worlds into a single shot is really good directing, and it's not always an obvious thing to do from looking at the page, because as much as we talk about acting is just words on a page, directing is also just words on a page. You're having to interpret all these things in a way that speaks to your taste, and also helps you have to recognize as a director what the audience experience is that you want to give them. How do I want them to feel? Here's a way I can communicate a feeling that isn't obvious on the page. Like, he's out there on his own. You know what I think is going to help the audience react to that isolation is to tie him into a shot of a room full of people and show that there's a wall of separation between them. And the only person, and so that's one shot. And then you also, in the story, and this is built in, is like, then we're also going to show one other person out on that ledge with him. And that's going to be the only guy who understands him. Or knows the secret, whatever. There's a lot of ways to interpret that. Another thing that I find interesting as a director, there's a funny, this is hilarious. How old do you think Joey is?
The kid?
The kid. In real life. How old do you think that kid is?
Well, because you're asking,
Yeah.
I'm 15.
He's like 16 years old.
Yeah. I mean, I would not have guessed that, but the fact that you're asking. So is it that he's playing a younger kid, or that his dad is so far off for how old he is that he thinks he's 9 or 10?
Fair. No, I think he really is 9 or 10 in the movie. But what I love about this from a directing standpoint is that's the dream. Like, as a director, what you want is to have a role. Damn it. There you are. Sorry, you got frozen. You were doing this for like 30 seconds.
Oh, it was?
Yeah,
Sorry.
No, it was my video recorder. But what you want is to find an actor. Like, you have a role for a 10-year-old. You want a 15-year-old that can play it. You have more maturity. You have someone that, has been acting longer, probably. And so you want someone who's small for their age, and maybe that in other ways you can age them down. Maybe that's giving some of these actors an apple box, right? Whenever they're shooting a scene with them, so that, Dustin Hoffman now looks, a foot taller than him. Even maybe they're closer to the same height. And so there's all these little cheats. And then, of course, you put a little makeup on them to age them down, give them a shorter haircut, wardrobe, make his clothes a little tighter or whatever. Like, there's 1,000 things you can probably do to help age him down. But it starts with, is he a little bit short for his age? Great. Let's shoot this now before he hits a growth spurt, Yeah. And the only reason I looked that up is I was like, that's the dude from Band of Brothers. Like, I know that guy, but that was only filmed like 7 or 8 years after this. There's no way he was like 17 while making Band of Brothers. And so I had to look it up. I was like, how old is he in this movie? And he was probably around 16. And I think that's awesome. That's the dream, like, to be able to, have a role for an 8-year-old, but it's being played, by a 14, 15-year-old. I'm going to kill this. This is going to be awesome. Well done, Frears. You're living the dream, buddy. What was the other thing? There was one other little, let me run through my disorganized notes. Oh, I also really like that the kid's watching all these sci-fi movies. He's watching Ghostbusters, but he's also watching Close Encounters, which, spoiler, is about a guy disconnecting from his family.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, in a lot of interesting ways. Go listen to our episode on that if you want to hear some of our real thoughts about that whole experience.
Crazy that he's that old. He looks so. What a baby face! I mean, come on. I've just called up that. I'm looking at it right now. I've called up that shot. It's like 1 second shot of him like bringing it, crying, watching Close Encounters.
It's so good. Oh. Yeah, I guess the only other aspect is I think you could also look at this as a movie that's talking about storytelling as a way to impact humanity. Right? Like, as cynical as I am about like the news and the reporters and their approach to taking real stories, and I mean, there's the whole aspect of if it bleeds, it leads, that they dance around throughout the entire movie, which is, as I'm sure most people know, the idea that news is going to go with the more outrageous story. Like if someone got injured, or if there was a murder, like those are the stories you really want to talk about, because those are the ones that people are going to be interested in, right? And they dance around it, like whenever she's got a broken arm, and Deke, Chevy Chase's character, is commenting about the story that she did, and he's like, if a guy is wearing a cast, you should feature it more. The cast is part of the story. He's wanting the violence to be more on screen than she was wanting to put it. And she's trying to become a better person than she was at the beginning of the movie. And he is fighting her on it every step of the way. Every step of the way. And she has to quit her job to become a human being. And that's a really interesting and honest look at like some journalism, for sure. Because before she can really learn the truth and care about the truth, she had to quit her job of being the one, quote unquote, telling the truth. Mm-hmm. And that's a very dark, cynical view of journalism. But there's also the more macro aspect of, there's also a storyteller behind the story. And they're trying to get to the truth through humor. They're trying to get through something profound through joking about it, and trying to create a sense of empathy and shed light on the truth through talking about all these lies. And that's storytelling at large, is the idea that you can get at something honest through telling a lie. Like whenever I sit and make up a story to tell people, that's a lie, right? That's not true. These aren't true things, but it's communicating something true through the lie. And that's something we're all aware of, even if sometimes we lose a little bit of the, the forest for the tree,
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't, what is it? Adaptation, where what's his name has that great speech. Yeah. It don't bore me. Like, why am I watching your story if it's not to get to a point that I'm supposed to like learn or identify with? It's great for it all to be true and for that to happen. But if you need to take liberties in order, like if we're talking about a story, right? We're not talking about like journalism. Journalism is not a story. Journalism should be the truth, period. If it turns out to be a story, fine. But like manufacturing truth is not it. A story is like this. Like a story is the point you're trying to make, not how you make it, right? So it could be everything is true, or it could be most of it is true, and we're taking some liberties in order to communicate this specific thing that we want to make you feel and we want you to identify with. Like that's the difference, but I think a lot of journalism just takes it way too far, and everything is a story. It's not a story. It's supposed to be the truth. So don't give me all the bells and whistles and all this other garbage that's not real. It's not the truth, just to keep me watching, like but that's how it is,
Yep. Dude, nice. Well said. And I think that's all I got. I mean, you touched on the fireman being the quote unquote real hero that cynical as everyone else. Yeah. Beautiful. Okay. Yeah. That's all I got. Any final thoughts?
I'm so glad that this was recommended. It's fantastic. This is something that I could go back to anytime. I think it's the comedic aspect of it, like the lightheartedness that, man, Dustin Hoffman just brings. I mean, he can be serious and real and believable and hilarious in the next sentence. Like I think he just delivers his comedic lines in such like in this movie in such like a flat way that it's almost like you have to question yourself. Is that supposed to be funny? And that is what makes it funny. It's so good. Yeah. And cinematography is like so good. Yeah. Anyway, we've already said it all. So good.
Well done. Nice. What are you going to recommend this week?
Yeah. This week I'm going to recommend a TV show that I just started watching, that I like so far. What? Do you think you know what it is?
No.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to recommend DTF St. Louis. Which we're only 2 episodes in and I am locked, man. Like I love it. What's his name?
I know.
I'm so bad with
Jason.
Jason. Yeah. Yes.
Oh my God.
Jason.
What?
Man, Jason is so everything from Ozarks.
I didn't want to look it up, but I'm going to look it up.
Oh
that
gosh.
Sucks. Bateman.
God dang it.
You're such a big
We promise
Jason
we're
Bateman
professionals.
fan.
We know this stuff. There's bad with names. Jason Bateman, like everything he does, it's just like nowadays is so good. And I watched this and I was thinking Ozarks the whole time because it's so blue. Like the lighting is so blue and everything, but it's nothing like that at all. I didn't know what it was at all going into it. And he delivers a performance that is different from that, and it's just so much fun already. So,
dude, nice. I'm gonna recommend another Frears movie called Dirty Pretty Things. It's got some of our favorites: Audrey Tautou, Chiwetel Ejiofor. It's great cast. Drama, if you want to see him take on, this is 10 years after, so this is 2002 when Dirty Pretty Things came out. It's a British thriller about immigrants in Britain and how they're struggling to stay under the radar because I think they're illegal immigrants and they're constantly worried about their status being uncovered, which puts them into some really dark situations. And so there's a lot of thoughtful, I don't know if I'd call it commentary, but certainly revelations about what some people go through in order to try and, better their life. And it's an amazing movie. I think it's just some fantastic performances, and Frears is he's an all-time great, actually, that doesn't really he never became a household name. It's one of those weird things. There's a lot of directors like that, that have been doing it at a high level. Gore Verbinski, we were talking about, like, also not a household name, like, even though everyone's seen his movies. It's one of those weird things that I don't know why Spielberg gets to be Spielberg. It just is. But so it goes. And as long as Frears gets to still keep making his movies, I'm on board. Yeah. Stay tuned for next week. We go way far away from Chicago and everywhere else on Earth. We're going to take a look, finally, at Project Hail Mary. Dude, could not be more excited.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll be there opening night for sure.
Very exciting. If you're enjoying the show, don't forget, subscribe, drop us a review, leave us a note, something you want us to cover. If you want to comment on this episode in particular, you can do that at thepestlepodcast.com/hero1992. I thought that would help disambiguate from all the other hero movies.
Not spelled out.
Yeah.
All right. And our quote of the day is from Plato. And this is a good one. Good people do not need laws to tell them to act responsibly, while bad people will find a way around the laws. Man, it's such a great quote, and it also reminds me of like, the whole argument of, do we not just laws, but like do we need the Bible to tell us what is good or right, or do we just know inherently? Like, I think we know inherently, just like, we don't need laws I don't need a law telling me not to kill somebody to know that I shouldn't kill somebody, or, whatever. Yeah. So it is a great quote.
I agree. Like, I mean, Plato, obviously, going back thousands of years. So this isn't a new idea that, humanity is difficult, to pin down at times. And I love that. Like, and he's not even saying we don't need laws or we don't want laws. He's just pointing out that good people don't need them in order to act responsibly. And bad people, it doesn't matter. And I think that's reflected, in Dustin Hoffman's character, right? Bernie didn't need a law to tell him to go in and help all these people in a wrecked plane. He didn't need a law to tell him to go and help the person in the lion's den, in the tiger's cage or whatever. Like, and every law in the books didn't stop him from stealing from other people. Like, he knows the difference between right and wrong, and no law is going to make him understand that differently. Maybe the punishment will tell him and help him understand, I can't do this and get away with it. Sure, maybe. But as far as morality goes, laws are not really there to reveal anything about humanity. It's just there to help try to keep society, cleaner, and communicate that, there's a certain way that we have expectations here, but they're not there to enforce or inform morality. And no matter what you might think of someone, and whatever you might want to enact on a law, like, it's not going to help you. Bernie going away to jail isn't going to change who he is. You just, at the end of the day, hope that it'll change what he does. I don't know. That's not very elegant at all. But I love these kinds of thoughts of, like, am I doing what I'm doing? And to your point about religion, like, am I doing what I'm doing because I'm afraid of some other being punishing me? Or is this just who I am regardless? And I'm always disturbed when I hear people make these weird arguments about, if I wasn't, if I didn't have the faith that I have, I might be out there murdering and raping. And I'm like, really? Is that what's standing
what's
between
keeping you from it?
Yeah, like, that's not good. But then, I think you should keep your faith if that's what's stopping you.
Thank
all
God.
Means, thank God.
Oh man, fantastic. Yeah, that's a whole nother episode. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you for the recommendation here. This was great. This is a good example of, if you have a film that you want to see us talk about, let us know. Maybe we'll cover it. This is a great example of that. Share us with your friends, subscribe where you get your podcasts, review us. It all helps a ton. Make sure to join us next week. Until then, I'm Todd.
I'm Wes.
Go watch some movies.